Okay, that's great.
One item off the list.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, that was
Never dull.
like,
They got a little.
From Holland?
Yeah, it stops in all those cities south of, but it's a little line.
Oh, yeah, you were, yeah, it was in the.
It's a terminal in,
Well done.
Chicago.
Bad. Not enough tickets.
See that one under Congress?
Still? No, don't get complacent on it.
It's right there. Yeah, so they just roll their bags along with it.
Not convenient.
You already have a copy of it.
That's okay. Oh,
For your
okay.
reading
Yep, I
pleasure.
read it. Oh, very, very much, yes. For our reading pleasure.
Very lucky with
right now. It was like $80 first.
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Especially to sales. I just don't like it.
So I take the Suburban visits. Tonnage prevails.
Right.
Was he avoiding it?
I like it.
Just you can't get me.
Pretty good the first couple of days, but then I started quite.
Need a wider angle.
Yeah, people cutting
You
you
know that
off,
camera would be.
pedestrians crossing.
It's a world.
Nudging with a Suburban.
I could get you.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
Probably lose at $5 every pay council members to get down there.
I'd give it.
It's gotta be set in escrow somewhere.
I don't know where Nick has it.
Plus interest. Don't forget the interest.
Right downtown Lansing, blocks. And
I like that
better.
Yeah.
She looks right down there to the baseball stadium there for the minor league.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she expects to entertain a lot.
There's some very cool things about it. I used to
Yeah.
want to be with them all. You know, to go visit, used to go see Ruby.
Yeah, that's it. And she goes to New York in the fall. She'll get there for 2 months.
Doing well, how about you?
I said, I'd be one.
Day in paradise.
Yeah, I'm not the only. Yeah, I know, I'm not the only. Good, that's my line.
Why don't people feel that way?
Same way. The truth, I can hang out with all you guys.
Now it's getting a little thick.
So what do you want? Why are you? Front row.
There's an ask in there somewhere.
Right, not today.
Nick, how's it going?
Good.
Table strings in there when Oberon's back out. Right. Already? Yeah, Scooby's got it. True. Nancy, how was your trip?
It was good. Thank you. It was warm. Okay. It was nice. Assistant.
How's it
Going well, they've been up there quite a bit lately. Most of the windows are Brian's adding a lot of windows. They've been delayed several times. Most of it's. I'm gonna do installation this week.
Jeff will have
I'm sure our guys can go there.
So we'll just vote on it after the fact.
What's the
Pretty much done. Rough is done, and signed off. I need to do a walkthrough, make sure we have. I've been up there pretty regular. We just pulled a new line, the transfer was sitting over on whole person's property. We just pulled a new line to put a 200 amp service. So they did the horizontal.
I looked at our version of that.
They came in right, they actually put the sign right up in
Then
the.
she ended up combining them all together instead of steering wheel. She put them together and put them for you.
No, it's coming along. It's a mess right now. Mountains.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's good.
Really up north too.
Let me check with her.
Those images you sent.
You're worried about
Snow or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Very good.
Right.
It's not.
Sunshine,
Right.
if we could just have sunshine.
Sunshine would be really nice. Where are you going? And Silver Cup was terrible.
What?
The Silver Cup was terrible. Oh, I didn't see you going down, trying to ski over the water.
No, that
Yeah, I
was.
sent her the foundation. The 501 takes time.
Guarantee.
You guys are up here, so.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, it's 7 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. All rise for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You. Roll call next.
Matt Boogera.
I'm here.
Nancy Rondell.
Here.
John Cops. Al Baker.
Here.
John Leo.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Excellent. Citizens comment. Anything that's not on the agenda, it's your opportunity to speak.
Thanks. So basically, I put in an application to use Zone Park for the Christian Music Festival, just a one-day thing. And I'm looking at August 6th. I worked it out with Rachel, and initially she said it'll be on the meeting today, but then there were some changes where it got pushed back to April. And it is time sensitive to set this up, and we have to book certain bands and so forth. So the time is critical for us to get rolling on it as quickly as possible. If there's any chance that I can get just a nudge in the sense that this could be approved so we can get started until we wait till April, that will be helpful. And if you have any questions for me to address, I'll be happy to address them. I did speak to Father James at Catholic Church, and he sent an email to Victor. I'm not sure what that email says, but as far as I know, he does support it. And we're hoping that this is something that we can do annually here in the city. And it's just a thing to promote compassion and love among all of us in our community. And, that's kind of the day would like to get it rolling. August 6th on a Saturday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
So we were gonna plan on bringing today, but we're bringing it in April. You see, staff talked to Kyle, Lucas, Rachel, we actually have no issues with it. I was just awaiting from Rachel, which Rocky sent to her today, was the status of the local nonprofit, because we have a policy that local nonprofits, he is the incorporator of the nonprofit located up here, so it is a nonprofit that's throwing it. So we have nothing against or no reason to deny it, but we're going to bring it application to you in April. I see no reason why we wouldn't deny it, but giving him the nudge to say, probably gonna be approved. We usually do these things in consent agendas.
Is it live music? I mean, are we gonna run into any trouble with the live band level of noise? Only because we just talked about that last time.
We're from 4 PM to 8 PM.
We do have in our city code language, it says for council approved.
Council approved
Events and
concerts,
concerts, yeah.
Okay, so
There's
we would,
exceptions for
we
that.
would be covered on,
Yeah.
on that part of it. Okay.
So
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, we are planning on having a live band, but we're also gonna have the screen as well to play certain things on that screen. And I've been in contact with the company out of Petoskey that we use for the movie theater to set up that screen. I don't think.
Yeah, it'd be similar to like music industry as far as that type of music, I mean, as far as the volume of the music.
And we might get a little rowdy, so I did give them heads up that needs a couple of riot gear just in case, you know. We praise God too loudly, but we love our city, and I've said it probably hundreds of times. And this is something, like I said, we could really get to know our neighbors, get to know the people, and I think it'll be something great for us to do in the city. We don't have to travel car, so. Any questions for me, anything?
this is the official application in April, but I think that you shouldn't expect a denial.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I have two things tonight. First of all, I spoke with Victor about the purchase of our new car. We passed out this stuff today. I just got the email today, reference to the cutoff date being this Friday. If I wanted to order a 2023 car, the cutoff is Friday, and I wasn't aware of that. So if I'd just like to add that as an agenda item, once we get into it, that's all right.
That's fine.
Okay, and we'll discuss it more then. And then I'd like to introduce Matt Howell. He's our newest officer today. This is his first day. And Matt came from Chillicothe, Ohio, worked 10 years down there, worked for the sheriff's office here for about a year. And I went down to Chillicothe to do his background, and everybody's saying great praise down there about him. So he's a seasoned officer. He'll bring some experience, some great ideas to us. And I appreciate your support and allowing me to hire Matt. And I think he'll be a good asset to our team. So. There's his wife Jenny. They're gonna build a house this summer out on Pickerel Lake Road. Is that correct? And so should be a sounding member of our police department for a long time. So thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Consent agenda. Any issues?
Did you get?
Yep. Couple little typos in the minutes that I fixed.
You and your red pen.
I know, I can't help it. It jumps out. I wish it didn't. It does.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Any public comments?
Any public comment on the consent agenda? Nothing? Good. All right, now you can make a motion. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Very good.
Al Baker.
Ready?
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Matt McGarrett.
Yes.
John Cups. John Leo.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent. All right. And the city management section.
All right, so we brought to you the finalized ballot question resolutions. This is in the formal form. We discussed it over the course of several meetings, both for Headley and parking and paid parking ordinance question. We have two resolutions for council to consider. One is for the Headley amendment language, which is what we had talked about, uncapping to 8 mills. With a cap of no more than 1/2 mil per year indefinitely until the voters see it again. So that's the first resolution for the Headley. The second resolution is for paid parking. It discussed all the items we talked about at the last council meeting, including the hours, the days, the months, the dollar amounts, et cetera. I received comments from 4 council members over the weekend individually, so just in case, I prepared 2 backup resolutions with slightly different language in case council wants to change their mind slightly. This original, the one from that council agreed to last council meeting had year-round parking. I've still heard from some that they might want to go from May through October, so I have a backup resolution. Number 3 has that May through October. And then also, there was some confusion about the 3-hour maximum. From what I've heard, people want to continue the way it's going right now, which is you have 3 hours in a space, then you can move your car and park in another space. The way this language was written was you have 3 hours total in that 9.7. So that's resolution 2 and resolution 3. So I'll leave it up to you. I guess let's take the Headley first, and see if council is ready to approve that resolution. Put it on the ballot.
I read it. I'm still as confused as ever. It's probably as good as it's gonna get. In my eyes.
I would second that.
The confusion part.
Actually,
I think all the language.
I think the language represents what we talked about, which is $500,000 per year up to the, the partial restoration of 8 mills. Beyond that, there's nothing else to add, other than a lot of education.
Right. We can't put that on the ballot.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
Public comment? There's one. There's 2.
Linda,
Go ahead, I'm waiting for water to clear.
Oh, hi, Bill Mulder, 372 West Summit Street. Hello, council members. Well, I'm here again to ask you for a slight and recommend a slight modification to the plan. I'm great with the Headley resolution as it's written and putting it on there, but I'm gonna suggest again that maybe we divorce the parking resolution from this ballot. And the ballot language is out, and I'm sure Jim and Victor did their very best to describe the plan for parking, but oh my gosh, it is dense. It took me 3 tries to get through that. And so I'm not arguing for or against parking. That's not the issue right now, but I think it's going to really hurt the ability to get the Headley thing passed. People only have so much attention. It took me, 3 tries to get through the parking language. And I'm thinking about the city manager and the city clerk holding public information sessions this summer. And so Nick, I can see it now. Nick's going, well, the millage rate is capped and it gets reduced by this and that. And Victor's saying, yes, and no, we don't get any money except for property taxes. And the people say, yeah, but where are the kiosks going to go? And where how many signs are there going to be? And it's confusing. So I'm in favor of letting people have their say on the parking. Let's do it by all means. Let's find out how many people want it. I think there's going to be a bunch that want it. But let's keep it separate from the Headley thing. I think the #1 priority and the single best thing we can do for the city is to get Headley through. That's going to give us more long-term stability. It's going to be a hard enough lift, and we need people in the community to aggressively campaign for it. It lost by like 185 votes last time. We got to change 200 people's minds, and we need really aggressive campaigning. You're all going to have to sell it. Victor and Nick are going to have to sell it, and I'd like to really work on it this summer. But I think we're handicapping the people who are going to put themselves out there to support this thing if we dilute it and pollute it with the parking thing. Now we got the language now. It's a work of art. But we can hold it. Let's just hold it for 3 months. Let's give the people a straight up and down vote on Headley. Let's put all our energy behind there, and then we can go with parking if we need to. It's in the can. It's ready to be rolled out. We can do it in November. That's a popular election. We could do it in February. We could do it in May, anytime. So let's put all our attention on Headley, and I'd love to help you guys sell it and do it aggressively. Thanks.
I'm good.
Well, that was what I was going to say. I would like to do anything I can to help get the Headley override passed. I know others have expressed, the same kind of ideas. And so, Mr. Mayor, if you would ask people, anybody wanting to join me to stay after the meeting for a few minutes and just we get ourselves organized, maybe we can help our neighbors understand the need and the Headley rollback and, get this thing done.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
I guess this is the third yes, I agree with everything that you're saying. I'm sorry, Janet Stewart at 410 Pine. I guess my question coming in also was, if we're voting on it at the same time and Headley override passes, the question, I guess, in general is would we need the parking? So I agree totally with Bill and I'm sorry. Linda, I think they should be split.
Lisa Maskell, 450 State Street. I agree with all of them too. I think it's easier to pass one. And if that doesn't work, we can go to the next.
Thank you.
One word, support.
All right.
Ann O'Brien, 565 East Main Street. I think the Headley, I didn't understand it. I didn't vote for it because I didn't understand it. Still kind of don't understand it exactly, but I realized, it's our responsibility to keep the city in a proper working order. And I think it's the residents' responsibility to pass this. So if we can work together and have more people almost understand it and see the need, versus passing our, our needs on to the parking. And I kind of see it as an either or thing. So this makes more sense to me to work on this. And then if this doesn't work, then the parking would have to work. Okay.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Anybody online would like to comment? None. So let's take the Headley first. All right.
Headley first. We all good with the?
I am.
I'll make a motion to approve the ballot language for the Headley amendment. So,
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
John Cups, Al Dyka,
Yes.
John Leo,
Yes.
Matt Rivera.
yes.
Motion carried.
I'd also like to just clarify something that you had said, Bill, before we go on. It's not staff's responsibility to sell it. It's our responsibility to educate. We're not advocating for or against, yes or no. So just clarification there.
Just explaining it.
Yeah.
Okay. And parking. Yes.
I like the idea of delaying putting this question on a ballot. Let's keep it simple. You folks were right.
Well, actually, let us talk first, and then we'll do that.
I thought I heard you ask for a question.
No, thanks. Nancy?
I understand what folks are saying. I do think one thing, though, just because the Headley passes doesn't mean we're not also going to need paid parking. So I think we have to be careful of presenting it that way, that if Headley passes, then we'll just forget about the paid parking. Because Headley at a $500,000 a year raises, help me, 125, 150
156.
a year, which if we're looking to keep up with expenses as well as put some money aside to do the boardwalk or whatever other projects, one is not going to be enough, most likely. So a concern I have with not putting them on, I understand what people are saying in terms of the complexity of them, is that people are going to assume if they pass Headley, then they don't want to pass the parking. Because they're going to want us to justify why you raised our taxes, or you have the potential to raise our taxes. Now, why are you asking us for more? And that's my concern with not doing them at the same time. Also, you know, the Headley is the property owners in Harbor Springs footing that bill. And the parking, paid parking is not that. It's people that use our town that don't pay property taxes here. So I think there's some really different issues. Myself, I'm not saying yay or nay to what you all are saying, I understand that, but I think we have to be careful that we don't present it that, okay, you pass this Headley, then parking goes away, we're not gonna talk about it. You know, because that isn't gonna be the case, at least I don't think that's gonna be the case. So that's my hesitation with not putting the rules out there and just letting the people decide. I know that Headley sounds really complicated, but once you get it, it really isn't super complicated. If it is presented properly, it's really not that complicated to understand. But it has to be presented in such a way that people can understand it. So that's my hesitation with splitting this ballot.
To the comment that Bill made about people don't understand it, a lot more people understand it now than when it was first brought to the voters.
Yeah.
And I do agree, if we, and we haven't talked about splitting them before. If we split them, then we're gonna hear a lot about, well, we approved Headley. So, you know, why are you coming back? And part of the educational process, not the selling process, and I personally, I think we've all tried to be very careful. We're not trying to sell it, we're trying to educate. And it's really up to people to understand what the opportunities and the challenges are, to make a decision what they want the city to do. My concern about splitting it is, as Nancy just said, it's gonna be, well, we passed that, so why are you coming back? And they are separate issues. Mainly, with parking, it's non-taxpayer dollars, which will supplement taxpayer dollars and might, in the future, alleviate the need for increases in the millage, which takes a burden off of the taxpayers. You know, we have a lot of people in town throughout the season that don't pay taxes. Why shouldn't they help defray the cost of running the city? Now, that doesn't resolve the issue of whether we should split them or not, but there's risks either way. And when I've talked to people, I mean, this is very much in people's minds now because we've been talking about it. And I've explained both to people at the same time, and you get to see the counterpoint of one versus the other and how they interact. And I haven't seen a whole lot of confusion. I mean, again, explained properly, they play together. They're part of the same challenge, which is funding for the city.
Well, maybe I missed something somewhere along the line with all the talk of everything, but we don't have to ask permission for paid parking.
You know,
We were doing this to kind of ease the uproar in town. So if we split it, keep the Headley thing, the headliner, because obviously that needs to go. We just keep paid parking aside, and we don't need it right now, but maybe we need it next year or down the road. If Headley doesn't pass, we obviously have to do something. So I mean, it really doesn't have to be on the ballot.
No, council can just decide to do paid parking. I mean, we can do that.
We've
next month
educated
if
everybody
we
on
want
paid
to.
parking.
Yeah.
We've been doing that. We can
Yeah.
continue to do that. But we still have that if we can't get the word on Headley across.
Well, even if we do.
Or even if we do, it's still there
Yeah.
for what if.
that's a good reminder. That's true.
Yeah.
So I would just assume we split them, put the Headley on the ballot, get that through,
Make that
our main focus. And keep paid parking in our back pocket for a later issue.
I don't know. I've gotten a lot of comments on it. You know, people don't want the two together. But
I think some of that is wishful thinking that Headley will pass
Right,
and parking will go away.
right.
That's why I'm so specific about
Right.
that's not gonna happen because Headley alone is not gonna be enough.
Yeah, the perception that it's either or is not accurate.
Right.
But again, we don't have to ask permission for
Yeah.
it. So
Well, yeah, that's true. And
That's a
the,
good reminder.
the danger we face is if parking gets voted down and then we put it in. That's gonna be worse than if it
Right.
isn't on the ballot and then we put it.
There's one thing to consider, and Nick, when is our deadline to get the ballot on for the November ballot? The language to the county, I think it's May or June, or is it July? I'm not
I
sure.
think it's August
Is it after
For
the?
November.
for November.
All right, so as long as, because if we want to go on the November
Don't quote
ballot,
me, but it's later on.
we'll have to double check that to make sure that, because we wouldn't be able to get on November. We, basically, council would have to probably approve it going to the November ballot before August.
The August election.
Yeah, and the August election is August 2nd, so probably you'd have to approve the language before the result of the Headley
okay.
vote anyway,
It's okay.
Yeah, either way.
if you want to get the November ballot.
But again, we don't have to.
No,
put
but you don't
parking
know.
on the ballot. That's what I'm getting at.
I'm just,
focused.
no, I know what you're, I'm just saying, if you want it to go on the ballot, it's just a reminder that there's timelines we have to fulfill there.
We've been focused on the wording for both of them, but it's a reminder.
Well, we've educated everybody best we can, so.
As best we can so far.
Right, so far.
Otherwise, Nick, we could also hold just a special election,
Got to be on one of those dates,
so February was, no,
one of the regular election date cycles,
okay.
March or May, I'd rather, August, November.
Yeah, I guess my fear is that they both don't pass when they're side by side. You can just vote no on both.
Well, that's the risk if they're both.
Yeah.
Right.
They're both on. But we have our fallback on the park.
That's right.
Well, so you think there's a better chance that Headley would pass if it was on by itself? I mean, that's certainly what we're hearing.
That's the consensus tonight.
Yeah. that's
And
what I'm hearing.
And we have the option to just vote paid parking in, I mean, not vote it, just put it in anyway, if we choose to do that.
If we feel it's needed, yeah.
If we feel it's needed, so if Headley doesn't make it, or even if it does, in all honesty.
Right.
If it doesn't, I think paid parking is going to have to go in right away.
Paid parking's never gonna go away. It's always gonna be
Yeah.
there, just when down the road.
Right.
It gets implemented,
Yeah,
probably,
because the rationale.
whether it's us or somebody else down the road, but.
The rationale is strong. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's-
If it's not us, it'll be the next council's gonna have to deal with it.
So much for getting any new recruits, huh?
That could go either way.
Yeah.
I could go either way.
I do think we have to be careful not to kick the can down the road, though.
Right.
It's a tough issue.
I think
and
it's clear we're trying not.
I know, I just felt like I needed to say that, you know.
Well, maybe we should listen and focus on the one that fixes what's wrong with, the tax revenue and
Right.
deal with the next one later. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so I'm not opposed to splitting it. You know what it does, no matter what we do. You know, it's our fault there.
Well, we do, yeah, because we can do paid parking in one meeting.
Is there a motion or
Talk it through.
public comment?
We're not gonna do anything. You don't need a motion, right?
No, but you might want to get public comment.
Get comment on the part.
I thought we already had.
Yeah, well, I guess there's more.
Yeah. Well, we can approve this resolution. I guess we'll do public comment. Okay, now's our public comment. Mr. Rondell.
Good evening, Mark Rondell across the street. I want to apologize, I'm here because I still can't figure out how to raise my hand. So that's all I just, I just want to say, I thought that the whole reason, and maybe I've missed something, that we're having an election in August of this year was to determine, to allow the voters of the town to decide whether they want to support paid parking downtown or not. And it's been complicated now by putting the Headley on there. But the original question, I thought, arose from resistance that was exhibited in this room to paid parking. And I thought that the idea of having this election in August was to settle once and for all whether or not the voters of the town are interested in seeing paid parking or not. I gave you all my input on that. And that is, I do not want to see us walk away from a non-property tax source of revenue and ask for a property tax increase. And I think that that's exactly what we're doing if we abandon the paid parking part of this ballot and simply focus on the Headley override. If we need the Headley override, I thought it was understood that that's a big educational hurdle for this community to understand. And maybe it's not prudent to do that on short notice now in August. But certainly the question of whether or not we should have paid parking is a valid thing, and that's what I thought was being addressed here by putting that on the ballot. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Rick Tarczynski, 465 State Street. My concern about the paid parking ballot issue is this mentioning over and over again about the 3 hour per day limit on parking, as Victor mentioned earlier. As it has been, it's been a move and you're good for another 3 hours and everybody was legal and happy, but this way it only gives you 3 hours. Now, if you're coming for an event like this gentleman's planning, you can't stay for the whole event. He's got a 4 hour event, and according to this, I'm only allowed to park 3 hours. So it just seems like that's terribly limiting for special events like this. And for somebody to come to town, they want to have dinner and do some shopping and spend the day. You can't do that in 3 hours, and so they just might not come. I think it's a bad time limit, and I think that needs to be rethought. Thank you.
I did provide council with alternate resolution for 3 hours per parking space instead of per day. So
I'm wondering, Victor, what might be the recommended way to form a committee, an education committee, or whatever you want to call it, to get people working, like designing yard signs? Maybe
that's not the city's responsibility.
that should be just a private
citizen
group of
initiative.
people. Okay.
I apologize for not having read everything before I came, but I'm just curious on the resolution for the paid parking. Does that give an amount that we anticipate would be, would result from that in the first year? And does it give the community the idea? Because having sat in a number of these meetings, I originally kind of thought it was an either or, that paid parking would resolve the majority of our problems, or if we could get the Headley override, that would do the same thing. But what I'm hearing tonight is that Headley override is going to give us, I believe, less revenue than the paid parking proposal.
no, so less revenue per year. So a revenue increase. So what the Headley override ballot question is asking is that council can give up to a 0.5 millage increase per year if they deem it necessary. So that right now is $153,000 per year. But let's say if some council decided to do 0.5 mils 1 year, 0.5 mils the next year, and then same thing the third year, together, that's $450,000 over the course of 3 years.
Okay, and I understand that. I understand the Headley override. I'm just wondering, as a voter, we kind of said, well, first year, the impression I got is Headley is not gonna take care of the problems. But the paid parking might. So as a voter, I guess I would say if we put them on the ballot at the same time, we need to really do a good job, because I've been to a lot of meetings and I thought I understood everything that was being said. And now I'm really a little confused as to what, if it were an either or, what the better option is. I mean, I think I know what it is, but just listening to what I've heard tonight, it was a little confusing.
Can I say something? I don't think it's an either or. I mean, I think that's one danger with putting them on the same ballot, is it makes it look like it's an either or. I understand what Mark is saying, and I think we should think about that, because truly the reason we were going for a special election was to deal with this parking issue. Okay, we had initially said that this was too soon to bring Headley back. The people weren't gonna understand it. We needed to find a revenue stream. And if we put paid parking on and it doesn't pass, or it does pass, we can put Headley on in November. And I think that my struggle with this is that it's two different types of revenue stream. One is more property taxes for those of us who own property in Harbor Springs. And the other one is a revenue stream from the folks that use our town, that don't give us money to run our town. So I think we really need to keep that in the forefront of how we're trying to figure this out. Because I think Mark is right, we've all of a sudden switched to Headley. And I'm not sure really why we did that. We decided to put parking on the ballot to help quiet things down. The people told us they wanted a chance to vote, until we said, okay. So I'm struggling a little bit with the way we're going with this at this point. Especially if we're only gonna put one on right now. I personally would rather see us put paid parking now,
Yeah,
and then deal with Headley down the road.
yeah, say, sorting this out now, it would make sense to do the paid parking first and Headley second.
But what happens if it doesn't pass?
What?
Paper.
Doesn't matter. So that's the beauty of the paid parking, it doesn't matter.
Well, it does. So what we're asking for an ordinance, and if the vote is rejected, then at least 1 year you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the voters say
You know what
no.
I'm saying? Hey,
Right,
Yeah,
that's why we don't want it on the ballot.
right.
well then are we just gonna do it? We know we need it, whether Headley passes or not.
I
So
think we
then-
should wait, but see what Headley does. If Headley does, that buys us time.
But what's to be gained by buying us time?
Better educate people on the whole situation.
I think people understand the paid parking pretty well.
Well,
They don't,
but
I
we're
think-
hearing that they don't.
the paid parking,
And I think if I can add, what we've been trying to do, we're not abandoning anything. We're talking about splitting two very important issues to the city. And to the point of the increase, like you explained, year over year increases in millage is something that we want to try to avoid, and that paid parking would help avoid, because we get in for projects and running the city, we would get money from non-taxable sources.
so if we put paid parking in, however we do it, whether we let people vote and it passes, or we just decide to do it, then the chance of passing Headley is probably greater, because we wouldn't have to use that uncapping is likely. As if we pass it now, we're gonna have to use it, not knowing whether paid parking is gonna go or
I
not.
think Headley needs to be on regardless, just to cover costs going forward, if anything. We saw that last year, budget time. All right.
Well, we gotta
In
do something.
essence,
We gotta
I mean,
do
that's why we
something.
did the 5 mils. That basically just covers costs.
Right, but it was voted down not very long ago.
Right.
And
But
it
I think
was,
there's enough people that kind of are getting it and understanding it now. I think we have a better chance of passing it now. And there'll be less issues for us come November.
we have heard on multiple occasions, and I hear it a lot in talking to individuals, that they voted against it because they didn't understand it.
I've heard that too.
That's a consistent message. And in all of this, Headley override round two for paid parking, and the way we're trying to approach it, we're trying to listen to what the voters are telling us they would like to do. And like anything else, you know, we'll please some people and we will upset others. But that's what we've been trying to do all along. But we're not abandoning the idea. If we split, we're not abandoning paid parking. We're just focusing on the Headley override, which fixes the first problem. And then we can look at paid parking, voted or implemented, to supplement that going forward.
I still think we're gonna get a huge pushback.
Either
If we
way,
put Headley, if Headley passes and then we say, but we still have to do paid parking, even though we sat here and said, we're gonna need to do that. Headley isn't gonna make enough money to really carry us through. I think we're gonna
we're
just
gonna
have
get
to start
pushback
all
either
over
way.
again, which was pretty
And
unpleasant.
it's part, that has to be part of the educational message for Headley. Or for both, but it's gotta be part of the educational process.
More public comment.
Sure.
Kathy Macho, 560 Sergeant Street. It seems to me the bigger issue was about Headley was we didn't pass it in November, so it affected the budgets that we had to do, you had to do right then. And so we were thinking maybe we need to put it up, but it's like if the need is urgent, you know, we can look at other options. And I think it's good that we're looking at the paid parking, I really do. But I agree that if we need to only put the Headley up at one time, because I think it's just, as I go back to people and talk about it, a lot of people are going, oh God, I think they really, it's just easier. The concept of having a little bit more in their taxes than having to mess with paid parking. I think that's a lot of it when it comes right down to the hassle and paying, you know, and the parking being reminded all the time. So I don't know. I think the Headley, I think we can explain it to people. If we work on it, I think we can explain it in a way that'll, and so we have to go back to parking. The other thing is, I thought part of the paid parking is you said you can do it anytime. And so it could be voted on, but a lot more flexibility. It seems to me the Headley was, you know, we had to do it before the next budget year, the beginning of the next budget year. I mean, are we constrained that way on the paid parking? I mean, we could vote on that, any other election, right? I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking, so.
We have to do something before.
But
the
we have
next
to do
budget
some,
cycle.
one of the, right, okay,
Both of these address revenue,
okay.
and
So-
revenue is what we have to do.
One little tidbit to keep in mind, the way the wording of the Headley is, as of right now, at these property tax values where we're at, that's $153,000. We have 3% to 5% decrease in property tax values, that's zero.
Right.
We're right back to square one. So diversification of revenues, I think, is the key. Whether it's something totally different, paid parking, I don't know. Some sort of alternate way of collecting revenues when one fails.
Right, and also the override, you know, raising that cap again does the same thing. It allows us to address that in millage if it goes down. So they're both revenue related. Right now, we can't raise the millage. With the override, we could.
Right.
Up to $500,000.
Right.
Which then if we, you know, if we decrease in property tax values, that $500,000 is gone.
It's gone.
So to have something to supplement that in case, I don't know.
So we come full circle.
Procedurally, I think the main point I heard was procedurally was that we wanted to focus, or some wanted to focus on one so we could put all our efforts into one instead of splitting the efforts into two. Whether council already voted on the Headley put it on the ballot. I don't know. We already passed the resolution, adopted the resolution. So I guess the question now is whether you want to keep the paid parking on the August 2nd primary ballot, or do you want to push it off to November, or hold off until it's closer to the election time to figure out what to do with it.
That would be my preference. I think we should put it in our back pocket.
Anybody got a coin?
That's about it.
I think there is some value to not abandoning any one or the other,
Right.
but I do think that either way, if you put them both on there, it'll be perceived as a
Either or.
A or B.
It's either or, I think. So.
If you split them, and then, the Headley fails, we'll be here in November saying, okay, we gotta do a budget. This right now, what are we gonna do?
Right.
That's where you would have to call the unhappy card of, we're doing paid parking without a vote. Boom, here we are. Still won't get us through that budget cycle, because we won't know the revenue.
Either
from
way,
December.
we're not gonna catch, when would the Headley, if you vote on it in August, say it passed in August, when does it take effect? When can it go up? I have
23.
23.
Yeah, I
So-
think 6 months, but I
Yeah.
don't quote me on that. We wouldn't be able to collect anything.
So
from
it's
that
not
till the
gonna,
next
for
one.
the 23 budget,
Oh,
when we're
It
doing
would.
it,
If it
but
passed in August, we
would.
would collect money in 2023.
February.
in February of 23,
No, June.
June.
June would be the first.
We're still gonna
February
get
is
half.
actually
Half.
2022's taxes.
Either way.
Right.
So it could be included for 2022 budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you're collecting, you're planning ahead, you're not planning back.
So, I have another question.
Okay.
Is it time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have a question. If Headley passes, so we've got that in for when you do the budget for next year. If the council decides that you do want to go ahead with the paid parking, even though you don't have it budgeted, is there something that prevents you from going ahead and doing it
No.
during 2023 or putting it up for another? Okay, so it's not like Headley's, is more affected by the budget issues, and the Headley and the timing of that are more critical, I'm thinking, more
Yes,
time sensitive than the paid part.
other than the logistics of infrastructure with the parking, I don't know what that would entail.
Oh, right, okay.
But I mean, yes, we can't collect until this Headley is overridden by the voters.
Right,
Paid parking, if everything was lined up, ready to go, we could, the council could vote and carry on.
Well, another thing to consider is that there are people here that are stepping up and saying, we want to help sell this. We want to get out there and educate people. No one's offered to do that for parking. No, seriously.
Well, nobody offered to do it for Headley before either.
Right.
Everybody was dead set against it.
Yeah.
So-
Right?
Is there any point in having a special election if what we're gonna do is Headley? Should we just do it on the November ballot? I mean, because.
No, the
Well, this isn't a
point-
special election. August is a primary.
The
Okay.
point would be, the point to doing it that way that I see is that if Headley fails, then council can
We're gonna have to dig in.
prepare to do the parking if they wanted to.
It's gonna get ugly. We're gonna have to dig in.
If Headley pass,
Oh,
if the vote passes, the council has more flexibility how and when or if to do the parking. So there's more flexibility.
And we're gonna learn a lot with the educational process on Headley. There's an opportunity to learn more about people's feelings about parking. I think we should focus on not abandoning parking, but focusing on Headley.
table, yeah.
So. Headley in August.
Table park.
Table parking.
Need a motion for that.
I don't know if you knew, but
No, there's nothing, no resolution has been
Unless
passed
someone-
on paid parking.
unless someone offers to make a resolution to put paid parking on the August 2nd.
ballot. This is in your hands.
I'd rather learn some more before we do that.
Right. Yep. I think we should just stick with the headline.
I agree.
Okay. No motion.
Jim, if we were to table the decision on the other ordinance, isn't there a limit as to how long you can table that for? Like so many meetings?
No, I'm not sure what Robert's Rules of Order says on that. The rules, I believe that this council has adopted, it makes its own rules, so I don't think that would have any preclusive effect. If you wanted to table it, you could do it indefinitely. Or just bring it back another day.
I don't want to table it. I just move on with the head.
Right.
Keep it simple.
I think we have to be very clear. I appreciate folks being willing to help educate, but I think we have to be really clear that that doesn't negate the parking. Because I'm still hearing people ask that same question of, well, if Headley passes, well, if you do have to do parking, I think if Headley passes, we still need to have another revenue source. And we certainly have gotten pushback on looking at the other revenue sources. So I think we just need to be really clear that when we go out and educate people about Headley, that it isn't an either or. Like if you pass Headley, then the parking will go away, because I just don't think that's going to happen.
I understand.
You're so quiet.
So on the parking, so I'm confused. So why is it on the ballot if you guys say it's gotta happen and you're all agreeing it's gonna happen? Why are we voting on it?
Because we were asked to do that by a huge room full of angry people, that they wanted a chance to vote.
So if it's on the ballot and it's voted no, then it tables your power for a year.
If they voted no, then we would have to look at some other ways of cutting programs, some other way of making revenue. Yeah. If we take it to the voters. If we don't take it to the voters, we could do it tonight, in all honesty. We could pass it tonight and put paid parking in tonight. We don't like to do that when we've gotten so many people that aren't sure they want it. We like to let people speak, but we're hearing both sides of it. So, I mean, that's why if we put it on the ballot and it's voted down, then we wouldn't put it in for at least a year. Correct me if I'm wrong. We wouldn't put it in for at least a year.
Right.
If we decide to not put it on the ballot, that we just need paid parking, we can just put it in without asking. I mean, we can do that legally, council can do that. That isn't something that has to go to the voters. The Headley has to go to the voters. Yeah.
Okay, so
Does that make sense?
yeah, well, yeah, okay. Not what I want to hear, but okay. But let me ask you, so if you would agree, like you say, you gotta do the paid parking, is there some point where like 2 years down the road or 4 years down the road, the citizens of Harbor Springs say, that was a good idea then, but it's not a good idea now. Can it?
There's an initiatory referendum process on that the charter provides that the citizens can petition council for an ordinance to go to a vote to the people to ban paid parking. So there's a process for that. Yeah, the residents can, if they feel strongly against it, they can come and force a vote for it to stop.
Run a slate of people that are
Right.
against it.
Right.
I think that's more likely to happen. They'll vote us out of office
You put the
if they
people
don't
on
like what
council
we
that
did.
don't want it.
And
Yeah.
that's just a natural process in politics, so.
The contract's already been signed with parking aids for $100,000.
I don't think any contract's been signed.
No, if council decides to go ahead with parking, the contract will be signed.
The initial cost would be spent, Patrick. I mean, the kiosk or whatever, but do we sign the app a year at a time? Or
That contract can be a year at a time. It could
Yeah.
be what we make of it. Yeah.
it wouldn't be an ongoing necessarily.
It's pretty steep up front.
Not if you only put in 4 or 5 kiosks, it's not. The initial one had what, 20 kiosks or something, the initial did. And that's where most of the expense is for the kiosk.
Right.
I happened to be here when the paid parking issue came about last time. And if you recall, there were so many people here against paid parking. And one group was saying, we have 2,300 signatures. Another saying this, another saying that, another saying that. And you folks seem to be all against it. The issue was, you're not representing your constituents because we've said we don't want it. Okay, so to validate that, we were going to go to for a vote to see if 3 people voted for paid parking and 2,000 voted against it, or whether it's a split, or whether there was enough need for it. That's why you were going to put that on, but you're correct. You can just do it, you can do it tomorrow. You can have that paid parking done quicker than you could order a new Dodge Ram truck and get it. So, no, but that was the reason, to validate the reason for putting it in. But you're right, you don't have to listen to anybody.
We'll let Linda go first. She's been.
Oh, well, I don't know if I said Linda Rockwitz, 519 East Third Street.
Yes, you did. 3
Oh,
times.
did I? Okay, well, say it again. I'm glad I'm sitting out here and not sitting where you are right now, because this is a very, very difficult vote. And so thank you very much for all you put into it. I don't think there is a perfect answer right now to this question. And, I still stick with the idea that let's get that Headley passed. Now, tonight's the first time I've heard that Headley might not be enough. I had it in my head that Headley was going to be enough. And one of the other revenue options were special elections or special millages. Like if we wanted to do the boardwalk, let's say it's not enough, but we want to do the boardwalk. We could have a millage just for the boardwalk, correct? And I don't mean to throw another monkey wrench into the works, but this is a toughie. I'm not willing to support the paid parking yet, only because I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I can see both sides. I understand there are people that can't afford to pay more taxes, and this is what they would like. They don't use downtown. They don't think they need to support downtown. I get that. I also think of all of our surrounding townships who have Harbor Springs addresses and think of themselves as citizens of Harbor Springs and what they bring to our community and the hard feelings that are going to happen if we have paid parking. So it's a toughie, but I would prefer to just see Headley.
Realistically speaking, Headley can solve problems if there's no decrease in property values. That Headley makes sense, right? And so we need to do Headley, in my opinion. We need to try for it because we're capped at how much we can tax right now. So the override, it can do what we want it to, but on the assumption that there is no significant reduction in property values. The other key component, and I think portion of this is whether the council wants to see diversified revenue sources so that the millage rate doesn't have to go up as much. So part of it is a need if property values decrease, and you can't predict when or if they're going to decrease. The second part is a want. Do we want to diversify our revenue sources, and do we want to shift the burden of our revenue away from the taxpayers? So it's both. I guess as one part of the question is if then. The other one is, do we want to do it or not? So it's a better way to phrase it, I guess.
Clearly, we also have an educational challenge with parking. So
Yeah,
I think we've agreed how we want to move forward.
Right.
So let's move forward.
Shall move forward. Okay.
All right, 3B, definition of resident and ordinance approval. This was brought up last council meeting, and we provided some language for the definition of resident. Council had agreed that we want to limit to registered voters. There's one possibility that there might be other people who are domiciled within the city that could technically, by state law, be allowed to serve on a board because there's technically a resident of the city. So we threw in that language of persons who are domiciled within the city that the city clerk has determined to be eligible or determined to be a resident. And that, the way we would present this is that, we would use a registered voter list to determine who is able to serve on the board and a board or commission. And if someone says, wait, I'm not a registered voter, but I am domiciled in the state, then the city clerk the city clerk would then go verify if that's the case.
Why would they not be? Because they just would choose to
Some
not
people-
want to vote?
Some people can choose to opt out when they renew their license.
Yeah.
So right now, when you renew your license, you automatically get registered to vote, but you can opt out. So I don't know why someone would decide to opt out from being registered to vote, but some people do it when they renew their license. So
An interesting combination. They wouldn't want to vote, but they would want to be on a board.
yeah, I doubt we would run into that situation, but it
Covering
it would basically.
This is a legal requirement based on state
Okay.
law.
Well, you can decide what the qualifications are for board membership, but,
The definition of a resident is most consistent with the state.
yeah, in
Less
order
likely
to
to be
become an
changed.
elector, the second part of this says, if you are qualified to be, a registered elector within the city, you would also be qualified to sit on the board, even though you weren't a registered elector. I don't know how much or how many people would fit that category, probably extremely few, but that's what's here. So you don't have to do that. It's your call.
That's fine.
So I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Matt O'Gara.
Yes.
Nancy Rundell.
Yes.
John Cox. Al Nyka.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
Motion carried.
3C, park board bylaws. And John Cox, you're on park board, so you know a little bit about this, but there is a request before the park board approves their bylaws to change the name of it to the Parks and Recreation Board to kind of reflect what the park board does. Different communities call it different things. Some call it the park board, some call it the parks board, some call theirs the Parks and Recreation Board. Some just have a recreation board. It's just a name, but technically our ordinance says the park board. So if we want to approve a bylaws with the parks and call it the Parks and Recreation Board, we wouldn't need to change our ordinance technically. I don't know if we could adopt the bylaws contingent on passing an ordinance, if that's the way council goes. I personally, it doesn't matter to me which way. It's just a request. I know Dana, you're the chair of the park board, if you want to speak.
Yeah, we had discussion. We thought, first of all, it almost looks like a typo, like somebody left the S off, like one park, right? So parks, and then we're gonna say parks, let's say parks and recreation, because that also includes programming, passive recreation, a number of other things. And we did have a unanimous vote to change it, if council approves.
What does it take to change the ordinance?
Preparation fee and publication.
It's just more fitting for what we got going on.
Yeah.
Well, if it's important for the folks on the board too. I know I listened to your meeting.
It just fits, what the whole program is being developed for, so.
Well, it goes with Rachel's title too. What's her official title?
Parks and Recreation
Parks and
Director.
Recreation.
I'll make a motion that we rename the park board the Parks and Recreation Board.
Second.
Nancy Rundell.
Yes.
Matt O'Gara.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
John Cox.
Can I vote on that? Because I sit on that board?
You can vote.
Yes.
And Al Nyka.
Yes.
Thank you for checking.
We'll present an ordinance at your next meeting, but take care of it.
All right, item 3D, a spillway school mural project. I was approached by a few residents with the idea of working with the school to have students do some sort of project in the spillway, to some sort of artwork, mural project there. We received, there's been, I don't know, Kyle can attest to it, but there's been graffiti in that spillway, in the tunnel, and it'd be a good way perhaps to, get the community together to, pick a design that they want to see in the mural. It's not in your face. You'd have to walk under there. So it's really not going to be something that, you can get a lot of complaints about, visually. But it also would provide something maybe if, an aesthetically or something that's fun for people when they're on their walking right now, if it gets turned into bike path, if they're on their bikes, as they're going through and entering town. So I think it's a good option. What they're asking for, as you saw in their email, is to get at least council's tentative approval of going forward with the idea. Then they'll approach the school and work on the school for a concept design that they'll come back to council to present. And it would be the students doing the project. Any funds, any money required would be donated by, they get sponsors or donors to fund that, so.
Kyle?
Just real quick, we had a similar situation in St. John's with the railroad crossing over Business 27. They built a new thing, the bike path, and a lot of graffiti down there. We did the same exact thing, put a mural down there. We still got a little bit of graffiti, but it sort of covered it up, and people took ownership in it too. More people took ownership, and so they sort of eliminated the graffiti part of it.
I think it's a great idea.
Me too.
I think it's a great idea for the school and the kids. I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah.
And the art teacher is one of the women who signed
Yes.
that, so she's on board with it.
Probably something in the fall that.
Yeah. I think it's great.
Gotta have art.
Good. So then I'll let them know. 3E would be Kyle and the police vehicle that he added on to that.
So this sort of caught me off guard today when I got the email. So I provided you with the correspondence I got from LaFontaine, and I also provided you with the correspondence I got from Bill Campbell from Signature Ford. Normally I have a whole thing prepared with the dollars and cents. This is allowed in our capital improvement plan. We budgeted for it, for the new car. It's just a matter that I needed to purchase it, or at least put the purchase order in quicker. You'll see in the pamphlet there, first of all, I did talk to, is it Joe from Brown Motors, just to let you know that I did try to go local multiple times to try to get a quote from Brown, and I've not received a quote yet. So I did try to go local. You see the initial quote from Signature Ford for just a regular 3.6 without the hybrid was $35,314. The hybrid, the second thing from Signature for the hybrid engine was $38,429. And then the last quote, LaFontaine has just recently come into the police car business, and their quote was, I think it's $36,0557. So I did over the last 2 weeks some analysis, because I was hoping to prepare a whole proposal for you on the difference between the hybrid and the regular 3.6, because we just recently got our hybrid that you approved was our last purchase. So over the miles they've driven recently, the hybrid's getting 21 miles per gallon. The guys have told me that it's getting a lot better gas mileage, and our normal 3.6 getting around 10.2 miles per gallon. So they told me this, and it's sort of proven. What I did is I put a sheet in every car. When we got gas, I put how many miles you traveled by how many gallons, and I did it. Now I don't have a whole lot of data, so I can't say that's going to last for a year, but that's our most recent data. So if I took that based on our annual report, where we travel 78,000 miles in a year, our department does, over the 10.2 for the non-hybrid, it would be 7,655 gallons. At $3 a gallon, the cost would be $22,965. That's how much we'd have in fuel expense for the non-hybrid. If I take for the hybrid at the 21, it's 3,629 miles or gallons, excuse me, and the price on that for gas would be 10,000. So literally, we're saving $12,000 by having a hybrid. And then I was talking to Matt, and he brought up the point of we've saved 40 tons emission if our whole fleet in a year was hybrids. We saved that in CO2. So I'd recommend a hybrid. I mean, this is not firm data. It's only over a couple of weeks, but the guys have told me that they're fueling up a lot less, and the data that I've collected so far proves it. So What I'm asking for is at least to give an inkling, and I'll come back with the final numbers just to go to signature and say, hey, because if you read the email about him, he's ordered, the LaFontaine told me they couldn't get hybrids. Campbell told me they can get hybrids because he's ordered, they're a major fleet service. He's ordered them. All he has to do is call them, and instead of having a black car, he changes it to a blue car and he adds our specs to it. But he's got them pre-ordered. So what I'm asking for is to try to allow, at least so I can let Campbell know from Signature Ford that we will purchase a hybrid so I can earmark that car for us.
Great idea.
Yeah, but I like the idea of hybrid.
The hybrid is much better suited to all the idling hours.
Is that the majority of it, like,
Well, the cost difference you're gonna make up in fuel this year.
Absolutely.
yes.
I mean,
So, and I've driven that car a few times. I mean, it's amazing to me.
I mean, that's a no-brainer.
I turn onto Lake Street off of State Street and the engine doesn't run all the way down to Hoyt. I mean, it's quiet, you know, and it's like, so it's not only safe, and it's also our idling time is oil changes, that type of stuff, the wear and tear.
Major wear and tear.
Right, so, but I'm sorry to come to you, normally you see my data all printed out, and I don't have that today, but I got the email today, so Victor, I just got this email that you see, so.
Oh, I'd say get on the list.
Yeah, get on the list.
Okay, thank you. You sure you're good?
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thanks.
Thanks for all you do.
We can sneak up on the bad guys.
Oh, yeah. I used to be a bike officer, and it was like so nice that you just coast and and then you tap them on the shoulder, and I was like, better watch out, Mark, I'll be up. Won't even hear us leave in the morning.
Was that on an old Schwinn with a banana seat?
Back in the day, that's all we had.
Yeah.
Who's called a stingray?
Thank you.
I see managers update. Kyle, you're up. Your annual report.
Want to do mine now?
Yeah.
You're on a roll. I know, here we go. So I gave you the hard copy of our annual report, and I'm just gonna go through here and highlight a few things. The staffing, first of all, my goal was when I became chief to provide 24/7 coverage, and we fulfilled that this year. Not one second wasn't there a police officer not on duty in Harbor. And back in the past, I know it was 5 years ago or 6 years ago, that would happen periodically. And I think it's very important because it deters people when they come in at 3 in the morning and they're thinking about doing a crime, they see a police car. And if we didn't provide that service and we had that void, I feel like there's no statistic that, and we've talked about before, where we can tell how many crimes we actually deter. So, and that was with minimal overtime. I keep track of our overtime at length. Every pay period, I keep track, and our overtime was minimal. Under the workload, in 2021, we completed 393 reports compared to 2017, 953 reports. So we've decreased that significantly. And as you, Matt, and I talked about today, because my goal was that by decreasing amount of reports to do it, that's less time in the office. And then if you go down to the end, the last sentence in that, right there, if you see this last year, we drove 78,000 miles. Now at $4 a gallon, I'm sorry about that, but I think it's important. And if you look back in 2017, we drove 43,327. So we've increased how much we're patrolling the streets by a significant amount. And to me, that's another deterrent. And it's just overall better for the city. I know it's costing us money now at $4 a gallon, but in the same sense, they're seeing our patrol cars out there more often. I think it's a better thing. Go to the areas, I want to go back up, Victor, back to the areas of significant foot patrols. If you see back in 16, we did 123 foot patrols. And in 2021, we did 1,001 foot patrols. So the guys are not only we're out in the cars, but we're also walking downtown, or we're walking in different places. The other thing was property checks. You see this 130 in 2016. And this last year, we did 2,856. So almost every night we have an officer downtown checking the doors of businesses, up at the mall, checking the doors of businesses. And we just, Nick Strobel did one down on Delwood the other day where he checked the door. There were some contractors there. He called a person that lives in Santa Barbara and they said, no, that's right. Well, then the week later he came back and checked the door and the front door was unlocked. And actually the resident was at that house. And so they called us, you know, they were just ecstatic with us doing these property checks. So move on to the traffic enforcement. People say that we don't write enough tickets and that we need to create more. And you can see the increase, 2020, we wrote 90, and 2021, we wrote 129. So there's an increase in there. There's also an increase in the amount of verbal warnings too. So we don't write everybody, we give a lot of verbal warnings. And then I don't know if there's any coalition with this, but if you see, if you see this number's up and this number's down, sometimes those coordinate because the more traffic enforcement you do, it reduces the amount of accidents. Next year, I'll come back and this will probably be 80, but for this year, it was a positive. Down to crime, in the next 2021, we had one break-in area. It was the first one we had in like 4 or 5 years, but it was in an alley down by the Bar Harbor. And I don't necessarily classify it as a break-in area. There was that little storage door. I think that it was an intoxicated person just decided to do something. It was more of a damage thing. So that's the only break-in area we've had in a long time. And then the retail frauds, I just want to highlight those. We had 3 of them that we solved last year. The first one was at Honey's Gallery, where somebody from downstate came in, took a ring. Officer Hoff took it, and they did it during the Taste of Harbor. They used a coupon to save money, like 15% off at Honey's. So he went and got that coupon, found out who the owner was able to get a Secretary of State picture and track him down. And sure enough, that matched the video footage. I went down and interviewed a person down in Grand Blanc, and he admitted to it and had the ring with him and gave me the ring. I don't know if I shared that with you or not. So that was one of them. Haza had one where a gentleman came in, took a thing of like cologne, and we were able to do we put it out on our Facebook page and got a suspect off of that and got him convicted as well. And we're not out to, but we're just out to save our businesses money. And then the most recent one, the outfitter had a pair of shorts that were taken. The person went into the fitting room and took the shorts with them, left the tag inside, but also bought some other items. So I think it was Officer Swiss got a search warrant for the credit card that they used. The person was out of Nebraska. So Officer Swiss and myself called that person and said, hey, this is what we think happened. She at first denied it, but then was like, there was some hesitation. So ultimately I talked to Josh and I and Tyler decided that we weren't going to prosecute regardless. I told the lady that on the phone, but said, if you feel, I said, there's only 2 people that know if you did this or not, God and you. And I said, if you feel that you did it and you want to pay the outfitter back, please feel free to write a check to the outfitter for the $89 for the shorts. Within, that was like on a Thursday, next Monday, we got a check for $100. So, the guys are doing a really good job of following up with those shoplifters and solving some of them. In the warrant arrest, you'll see like it remains at 7. The jail's not taking people because of COVID still. So we're not slipping on that. We can't arrest people on those. So we go to parking, which is the next, and you'll see the increase in parking. And the one stat I did put in there, in 2019, our revenue from parking, this is like ballpark, is $5,516. This last year, our revenue from parking tickets was $13,670. So in 2021, we wrote 1,153 tickets, and of that, we collected $13,670. Emily's doing a bang up job over there. We're sending out memos and stuff like that, trying to, in the past, people wouldn't pay parking tickets and they just went away. And now we've sent letters, we send another warning letter, and then we write them a civil fraction. We take it over to the district court. So that's that. Onto the non-criminal complaint section. I put in here, while other agencies are getting away from being full service agency, we pride ourselves in being a full service. We do everything, lockouts, found properties. The one that I really take pride in, and I was talking to Matt this morning, we only have 63, but a little thing we find a lot of phones downtown in the summer, and they turn in phones. And one thing, like in a larger department, they just take that phone and they put it in a property bin with a label on it and it would sit there. What we do is we take that phone, we call 911. That's the only way we can get through the security code on the phone is if you call 911. We find out the phone number of that phone, and then with a company that we use as a search engine, we can find out next of kin that phone number. So then we call their next of kin, because we can't call the number, we have the number. So we call their next of kin, and you'll be amazed, like 3 or 4 times a summer, that people don't even realize they lost their phone and they're with their wife. We call their wife and they say, do you have your phone? And no, I don't. Where's that? And we have it. So it's one of those services that I feel like not every agency does. And it's one of the things that the guys take pride in it. And it's sort of, it's neat for us, but we like to return that. And the same with driver's licenses, because unlike where I came from, St. John's, where you find a wallet downtown and it's going to be a St. John's address, Here you find a wallet and somebody from Florida or somewhere in California. It's not like you can go drop it off at their house. So training, just real quick. I take pride in, we're trying to send as much training as we can under our budget. But the requirement for us for training between fair and impartial policing, mental illness, compared to when I first started being a police officer in '87, where there wasn't all these requirements and might not necessarily be required, but it also keeps us out of lawsuits by sending the guys to the training. So the guys, we go to a lot of training. And on the Marine Patrol, real quick, Dean Starr, Marine Patrol officer, doing a great job. I feel he's got a good temperament for working the water and taking care of any issues out there without being a hard fist on it. I've ridden with him multiple times. We see people like wake zone violations or whatever. He reminds them that this is what they're doing, and he does it in such a manner that they don't continue to do it. So, and then for the accomplishments of 2021, we continue to decrease patrol time, which I already talked about, and decrease the amount of time in the office. We increased parking. We installed our body cameras. They've been huge. The court likes them. We got our body cameras, Matt's got his on, and they're in the in-car cameras. And then the last bullet point there, this is a big thing. I mean, for us to go COVID-free our department for the whole year, because this is not only when we're working, this is our personal time. And for the guys to work that hard, like I have friends at agencies downstate where the whole department of like 16 people got COVID, so they shut down. And these guys worked hard, not only while they were working to be COVID-free, but also off duty. I mean, they could not only contract it while they're working, they could contract it going to Myers or going to the store, and they worked very hard to be COVID-free. And I'm just very proud of the fact that there wasn't one officer that took any sick time because they had COVID. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that derogatory. I'm just saying everybody worked very hard. Because some people get COVID even though you work very hard, not trying to get it. So, and this year, our goals is to purchase, the one thing is the tasers. We do need to replace our tasers, we're down. But the other thing that on our capital improvement plan we talked about was uniforms. I'm gonna hold off on that just to see where the heck they goes. It's something I go wants and needs. We need the tasers. Uniforms are more of a want. I'm gonna wait and see on that just to see. And then purchase and equip number, the second to last bullet point, to get the new patrol car. We just talked about that tonight. So anybody have any questions? Sorry, I ran through that pretty quick.
Can you tell a little bit what Tyler's gonna be doing at the school?
Yep, Tyler, Swiss, Matt, I'm hoping will be trained in the fall. And then Tyler will be in the school full-time, 7 to 3, barring any events, sporting events or different things. I've talked to Michael at length, and then he's gonna be doing educational programs for the kids and the staff. I've already got him, there's a couple of classes. There's a SEPLA, as a school resource officer. It's a class where he'll learn to protect our schools more, plus the educational portion. And he's gonna be interacting with the kids all the level. He's gonna have an office in the high school, but he'll also have satellite offices in this, like a smaller office in the other schools. But I think it's a win-win. It's gonna be, they're excited about it. I'm excited about it. And he volunteered for it, which is very important to me. He worked with kids. I think we talked about this before at juvenile court over there for 9 years. So he has that connection. And I'm probably going to use them also. But man, I talked tonight. We're having a lot of senior frauds where seniors are getting scammed through these various scams. And I'm hoping maybe the end of April, early May, I'm hoping to have Tyler do more like educational programs for everybody, not just the schools, but he'll learn like some of that stuff out of his truck, and he'll be able to do, like, I want to do a senior awareness and maybe have something at the Holy Childhood and sort of task it on Tyler as well. But Tyler, like I said, he is not only for the students, it's for the staff and for the security portion of the schools.
Oh, that's great.
Is that right?
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Can I ask Kyle a quick question?
All right.
Thank you. Just real quickly about the school officer, since schools are sort of a target place, is there any special training he's getting for active shooters?
Oh yeah, that's a SEPLA, the one he's going to Mount Pleasant for one, and he's going to Lansing for another. And that's the one day is strictly on active shooter. And that's something that I wanted to do this April actually, because I wanted to have our old department. We've got other things going on, but that's when we purchase the rifles, and I want to be ready and able to protect our schools if that does happen. But he is going, that one day of that SEPLA is a 3-day class, is strictly on active shooter.
Nancy and I went to it activity over at the college a couple of years ago with an excellent speaker
Yeah.
on that, and I thought it was very helpful, very valuable.
Yeah, when I was at Clinton County, I was, when Columbine first happened, I was a trainer for the trainer. For right after Columbine, they come out with it used to be called Quad. It was the first 4 officers that arrived, how to go into the schools and stuff like that. Now they've narrowed it down. You don't wait for 4, first guy goes in. But I'm hoping to incorporate that into our whole department. And actually, a cool thing that's gonna help us prepare for that is there's a system that the college guys called Milo, so like a simulator. There's a screen and you shoot or don't shoot. And we're gonna have that above our police department for a month. The college, did Kuzno and I work together. He got it, but we're good friends. And he said, I'm gonna give you that so you guys can train. It's gonna be probably in our room above the police department for a month. And it's a good simulator because we only shoot, unfortunately, 1 time a year. And this at least puts a gun in our hand and it's a shoot, don't shoot scenario. So I think it'll be beneficial.
I'm impressed. Sorry to interrupt.
Anybody else have any questions?
Can we come play with the simulator?
What's that?
Can we come play with the
Oh,
simulator?
shut up. Someday I like that. And like I said on my first thing there, like if anybody, and this goes for everybody, and you know how I feel, if you ever see any way that we can do things better, this is not, I'm always open. And hopefully half the town has my cell phone number. So if you need to call me, you call me and.
More than half.
All right. But I'm open to always open to suggestions, and it's the 3 C's, the commitment, compassion, and community oriented. And that's sort of what I live by, and that's what I hope our department does. So I'm really pleased with the staff we have. And Matt, 2 Tylers, Nick, Steve, and Josh, and then Emily's just a rock star in the office. I feel like we're going in the right direction.
Thank you.
But I appreciate your support.
All right, really quickly, a couple more updates. We are still actively searching to replace Larry Nix, who is retiring. And we have 1 applicant for that position so far, so I'm hoping to get some more. As for the planning consultant position. Also, it's not on here, but April 12th, the morning of April 12th, because we're not having another council meeting until April 18th. Staff is having training, so we'll be closed for that morning. We'll have notices on the website. We already posted them on the doors out here, but most people are gone anyway, April. But we're doing some staff training, which includes CPR and some other things for staff here.
One thing we did is, this Tyler Swiss is that we did a trainer. We're not trying to incorporate a lot of training in so we can train ourselves. And Tyler Swiss is a CPR first aid instructor. And so he can train staff here. And so that's what we're utilizing for that.
And really quickly, just going through the boards and commissions, the meetings that happened the past couple of weeks. Zoning Board of Appeals approved, denied an appeal of a zoning administrator's decision on 420 East Main Street, but then approved the variance from the zoning code for that same property. The Parks Board approved its bylaws, as you heard here, and we're reviewing the upcoming events and doing some parks planning. The Harbor Commission reviewed the harbor plan updates. They had a couple of requests for some special events, which was a blessing of the fleet as well as a rendezvous, and then some discussion about the boom positioning of the dock and dredge barge. Planning Commission held its master plan public hearing, and they adopted a resolution for that master plan. So council is going to see them have a meeting on the master plan on April 18th to either give a final approval to the master plan or kick it back to Planning Commission for more revisions. Finally, Tree Advisory Board, we are having Arbor Fest, which is going to be on Memorial Day weekend like it was last year. So it'll be on Saturday, May 28th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the tree board was also going through their implementation matrix. We went through that and assigned priorities to each of the tree the tree plan goals. I just had a couple of MPPA meetings and a chamber luncheon. So that's all I have for city manager's report.
You're all.
Not me.
Happy spring. Yeah.
Can I just give a little bit of information? Memorial Day, when you're having that, whatever way you said, until 11 o'clock or after 11 o'clock. Don't forget that the American Legion has a pancake breakfast every year that morning, and it's a good deal.
That's on Memorial Day itself?
Yeah.
Okay, this is on Memorial Day week, Saturday.
Saturday.
But that's a good reminder too, though. There's a Legion.
Yeah, you can move free information.
All right, well, there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Anybody interested in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I have no plans, just.